Hey everyone, welcome to Ouachita Ridge Homestead. My name is Jessica, and we just moved into our homestead in December 2024. So this is officially our first year. And today I'm sharing our big plans for 2025. What we're growing, what animals we're going to be getting, and the major projects we'll be tackling as we build our dream homestead from scratch. So stick around and let's dive in. So right now we're starting with just the land. There's no garden, no animal infrastructure, and there's a lot of work to do. But that's part of the adventure. One thing we do have though is a barn, as you can see behind the kids' play structure. But the previous owners used it as a man cave, workshop, storage area. So one of our first big projects is cleaning it out and turning it into a real working barn. This is the back part of the property. We do have more on the front side. We have like a wooded area that eventually will probably be thinning out, possibly even turning that into some more garden or animal space. But for now, this is the area that we're going to be working with. So one of our biggest priorities this year is getting our first homestead garden started. And you can see I've kind of started to get part of it blocked off here. This is where this section here, all the way down that way, we're gonna have 10 4x8 raised beds, or maybe not raised beds, but you know, they'll be like little cardboard with the dirt over top of them, with about 2 feet in between each bed there. Now this, like I said, this holds about 10. This is 60 feet right here. I didn't want to get it too close to that because I imagine those trees up there are going to leaf out and shade, and so I didn't want it to be overshaded. And over here I wanted there to be some room to move around the side of the house. Here is where I will probably putting more. I need about 5 more raised bed spaces, about 5 more 4x8 spaces. And then because I'm also wanting to do wheat, corn, and potatoes, we'll be needing some areas as well for those, because those crops are going to go directly in the ground. Those will probably be out in the front. But what we're planning on planting this year is, like I said, wheat, corn, potatoes, tons of vegetables, herbs too, some culinary for both culinary and medicinal uses. So I'll be using a mix of raised beds and in-ground planting. Raised beds for the smaller crops and in-ground for staples like the wheat and potatoes. We're also focusing on companion planting and keeping everything as organic and self-sustainable as possible. Another exciting part of this year is planting our first fruit and nut trees. So I actually did just get an email today that my first few nut and fruit trees that I ordered will be here sometime next week. I ordered 3 different apple trees, 2 different pecan trees, and an almond tree. I chose those specifically because they're the ones that are going to take the longest to mature, and I wanted to get those going in the ground as soon as possible since those are going to take the longest. I haven't decided exactly where to put them yet. My idea was along the perimeter of our property. So you can see there are already a bunch of trees there, so we're probably gonna have to take some down. But I'd like to do along the perimeter for these trees. Now, some of them do need to be close to each other for optimal pollination, but we'll figure that out as we go. 2025 is also the year we're getting our first livestock. So I'll show you where that's going to kind of be at. In March, we'll be bringing in, well, I say March, but Tractor Supply may be getting those baby chicks in sooner. Hoping sometime next week. But for sure, by the end of March or by March, we'll be getting our first chickens. And we'll be bringing in our Buff Orpingtons for eggs. Okay. And then in June, I'd like to get some Silver Fox Rabbits, which are great for meat and garden fertilizer. Also, their fur, I like to make some dog treats. And take a look at this area. So this is near the barn. And over here is where the previous owners used to have chickens. So I'm going to see what type of wood I can scrounge up in here. to turn into a chicken coop. And they've already got this area kind of fenced off. It's not the right type of fencing for chickens. I see chicken wire instead of like cardboard cloth. But I'm going to turn that into a nice run for them. Their coop eventually will be inside the barn here. And there'll be holes cut out so they can get outside in the morning once they get let out. But they'll sleep in here at night once this gets cleaned up. And the rabbits will also live in here full time as well. Okay, so I got all this to clean up. And then I'll take you around to the back because there is this round stock tank that I'm going to turn into a little chick brooder, or see if it works as a chick brooder. So that right there, I'm going to drag that out of there, and I'm going to add a top to it and put that in the barn, and that's going to be my chick brooder. But all of this back here is eventually, and including over there, pretty much everything on this side of the barn is eventually going to be separated into paddocks so that I can do rotational grazing. Now, I'm only planning on doing egg-laying chickens and silver fox rabbits this year. Next year, I will probably get some meat chickens, which I'm thinking Ranger Reds or something of that sort. And then hopefully some goats and some pigs. That's for next year though. I decided not to do meat chickens this year, even though I was getting the egg laying chickens, just because I already had so much to do. So this year we're focusing on getting the homestead set up, starting with, like I said, the cleaning out and setting up of the barn for the animals and storage. Eventually, not only will that host the chickens and the rabbits, but also there's going to be pens in there for the goats and the pigs, and a storage area for the feed, and also a place for milking. With that will be the chicken coop and the rabbit hutches. So those are my priorities this year. Starting to get the fencing for the paddocks for future rotational grazing. And then also another thing that I'd like to try to get in this year is setting up a greenhouse to extend the growing season. Right now, I have a seed starting set up inside my house, but over here, this door goes into my living room, and this is the back porch here. I'd like to turn this area here into a greenhouse, so like I could step out of my living room and into the greenhouse basically. Now the ground is uneven, and I would probably have to build up a floor, and this is the south side, and part of my house will be attached to it, and there's going to be issues with making sure it's waterproof so it doesn't like mold or rot my house even more. But that is a goal that I'd like to try and do. Another thing that I want to also focus on is getting gutters on all of my eaves here on my roof so I can start collecting rainwater. We do have a well house here, but the pipes in it look like they were burst, like they frozen burst from previous years. And the previous owner said they only use it for irrigation. So we are on city water right now, but I'd like to get the well up and going. Even if like we won't use it for inside the house, just so that I can use it also for the livestock and the crops. So starting a homestead from scratch is overwhelming. There are times where I'm just like, I don't know what to do first. There's a ton to do, and I know things won't always go as planned. The biggest challenge by far is balancing the garden setup and the animal setup and the infrastructure all at once. But I'm most excited about finally growing our own food and raising animals for our family as well. I would say for the first time, but I did at one point when we lived back in California have some chickens. So it's not really my first time with egg laying chickens. It'll be my first time with everything else. Right? So that's our homestead plan for 2025. There's a lot to do, but I'm excited to share the journey with you. If you started a homestead from scratch, drop your best advice in the comments, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you can follow along as we build Ouachita Ridge Homestead. Thanks. Bye.